Hello everyone, Derek Johnson with Tatango.com. I am here with TCPA attorney John Nelson, and today we are answering questions about TCPA. And today we have a really good question. It is, just to put some context, it's November 2018 right now. And the question that we have today is, what is the proposed reassigned numbers database and why does it matter to the TCPA? Now I say November 2018 because things in TCPA are always changing.
Always changing.
So this, I think, is really relevant right now. Why? Why is reassigned numbers something that is kind of relevant now, but may not be relevant next year, or maybe super relevant?
So reassigned numbers, really we've seen from 2017 to 2018, have become kind of a major issue for brands and marketers, and the FCC finally has started to realize this. So I don't know if at first you want to explain maybe what a reassigned number is.
Yeah, like how it impacts, text messaging.
Sure.
I guess a good example, let's use your phone number. You opt in for Chipotle. You love Chipotle. I love Chipotle. It's good. I think Bren and I, we went to Chipotle once together. We loved Chipotle. And so we love Chipotle. You love Chipotle. Let's say I don't love Chipotle, though. You opt in to Chipotle's text message marketing. You love getting the coupons every week, but let's say you get reassigned to Europe and you have to get rid of your AT&T phone and you give up your phone number. Chipotle continues to send text messages, coupons, to that phone number because Chipotle doesn't know that the phone number has been disconnected. Then if the phone number is reassigned, Chipotle still doesn't know. So then those coupons are going now to, let's say, me.
Yep.
And let's hypothetically say I don't like Chipotle. I would be very, very mad. And I would say, Chipotle, why are you spamming me? Because I never opted in.
Correct.
That seems like a huge issue because in the TCPA, if you text message somebody without their consent, you can be sued as a brand $500 to $1,500 per text message.
Correct.
So that's why this is so important.
It is. And what has kind of come out of this are a few separate issues. So one, we have the issue that began in 2015 with the FCC, where brands had said, hey, this is a problem. I'm texting these reassigned numbers, but I'm not meaning to. Can I be accepted or exempted from the TCPA when I do this? And what the FCC said was, well, we'll give you one break. We'll give you one message, what they called at the time and are still calling the one call safe harbor.
I've heard of this, like the one call safe harbor, I've heard it protects people from this, but for text message marketers, it really doesn't help because, yes, the first text message won't count.
Sure, but every other one will.
But I will continue to receive Chipotle's messages. Now, I guess the one call safe harbor kind of makes a little more sense for like phone calling, right? Because if they pick up the phone, they tell me it's not them, that one phone call that I just made doesn't count.
Correct.
So it makes sense kind of for phone calls, but nobody picks up phone calls anymore.
Right, and it's the same for text or phone calls. You get one chance that person answers and says opt out or not, no longer the same person, but everything after that is going to be against you.
They're not legally required to reply stop to that message.
They are not. And the brands, the carriers aren't required to tell brands when a number has been reassigned.
Okay. So that's the issue.
That's the issue. Those are the issues. And essentially what we have is first in March of 2018, long story short, the DC Circuit had struck down that one call safe harbor as unreasonable, recognizing that what the FCC was expecting of callers just wasn't possible. And essentially that put us at ground zero again.
So they had this one call safe harbor. It sounded like a good idea. They have the best intentions, right?
Sure.
But there's so many, there's faxes, phone calls, text messages that are all falling under that, and there's debt collectors and there's marketers. It's a hard thing to make a rule that applies to everybody.
Yeah.
So there was that rule. Then, was it the circuit court?
The DC Circuit.
They looked at that rule, and said, that doesn't work for us. And then they wiped it off the books.
Correct. And what we have seen, both after that ruling and even before that in 2017, is the FCC now finally recognizing, hey, this reassigned numbers problem is a big deal for a lot of the industry. We need to come up with some way to let the brands or callers know generally when a number has been reassigned. And so we can also protect consumers and their privacy. And so what they came up with, and then this was initially thrown out there in 2017, was, hey, would it maybe be a good idea if we came up with some sort of a reassigned numbers database where carriers had to let everyone know that a number has been reassigned and allow that brand a certain amount of time to recognize that and unsubscribe that person from their lists.
This doesn't have to do with the consumer. It's the carriers communicating this information to Chipotle, Macy's, the brand. The consumer, then, they just don't want to receive text messages they never opted into. So
Correct.
The carriers essentially, or the FCC is essentially saying, hey, carriers, you should provide this data to the people that are helping Chipotle and everything send these messages to protect the consumer.
Correct.
Okay.
And in 2017, they threw this question out there, and what they received back from the industry was an overwhelming, yes, we want a database.
Okay.
But now we have to find out what kind of database. What should that include? What should the nitty-gritty requirements be?
What the cost of it?
What the cost is.
How do you get access to it?
Correct.
Because there's also a lot of kind of private information there. People
There is.
disconnecting phone numbers, transferring phone numbers.
And commercially valuable information.
Yes, okay.
And what we've seen in 2018 now is the FCC again asking for comments, suggestions, input about more specifics about the database. So asking, what specific information callers need from the carriers to unsubscribe numbers that have been reassigned.
Okay, the brand. What information do they need? Okay.
How service providers should report this reassigned information, and whether they should be required to report it or whether it should just be voluntary.
And service providers are like AT&T, T-Mobile.
The carriers.
Okay, perfect.
And then, how many databases should actually be created? Should it be one database that's run by the FCC or FCC administered? Should it be almost like a state-sanctioned monopoly where we allow one commercial aggregator to be in charge? Or do we just allow the market to figure this out and allow anyone that wants to create a commercially available database create it? And then finally, asking again, big question, whether the FCC should institute a new safe harbor, a new protection from TCPA liability for brands that use a reassigned number database but still accidentally text a reassigned number. So protecting them from TCPA liability so long as they use this database and are using it correctly. So these are the more nitty-gritty questions that the FCC is now asking the consumers. And we as a firm have kind of been leading a coalition on this, getting brands interested, getting them to engage with the FCC to give them their opinions. Because, without opinions, without comment, no matter what it is, the FCC can't make an informed decision.
And they want to make a good decision.
They do. And this is one of the probably, better proceedings that we coming out of the FCC, because it's going to be very, commercial sector friendly, but also very consumer friendly. It's going to protect those consumers from not getting messages that they don't want.
Yeah.
But it's also going to, hugely help these brands, protect them from liability and from sending text messages that they don't want to send.
And they don't want to upset even non-customers.
Right.
That's almost the worst kind of people to upset. Okay. And so when it's November 2018 right now, they've gone out and asked for, brands' opinions and the carriers and everybody involved. How long does this take to, I guess, get the FCC to come up with something, and then I'm guessing also the FCC will say there's a 5-year window or 2-year window to do this as well. Like, because that's building this database and everything. It seems like a big project.
It is. And essentially the FCC can take as long as they need.
Okay.
You know, we have seen now two what's called notice of proposed rulemakings where they're asking these questions. We've seen two of these come out. The FCC isn't limited in how many they need to make. You know, they essentially can dish out as many as they want until they get the answers, you know, that they need.
Okay.
So, you know, we've seen now a deeper dive into more particularized questions, but, you know, obviously there's still disagreement. The FCC could come back and say, hey, we've heard your 8 or 9 proposals. We've now narrowed it down to 4 or 5.
Okay.
You know, that funnel could still be there. So I'm pretty certain we won't see anything in 2018.
Okay.
There is, of course, a possibility that, you know, this starts becoming a bigger question or implementation issue in 2019. But what's important for brands to know is that this docket is still open. It's still something that you can go to the FCC and talk with staff about.
Oh, okay.
That you can submit comments to online. As long as that docket is open, you know, the FCC is still signaling they're all ears.
Yeah. And that you guys help with counsel, internal counsel helps with, you know, reaching out to the FCC.
Sure, because FCC rules can be pretty complicated, and even filing something as simple as comments can be typically, you know, kind of difficult. And
Yeah.
we're here not only as like technical TCPA attorneys to help you kind of determine what the law means and how to protect yourself, but also to navigate that administrative law realm, something that a lot of people aren't familiar with.
And that's why you guys are here in DC. You know, this is the place of, you know,
Yep.
law and everything.
If you're going to meet with the FCC staff, you need to be
In DC. So brands can really, I think, have a big impact right now in, you know, even just stating this is a good idea, or just
it's one of the simplest and cheapest, least timely ways in which you can help fix these issues. You know, it's something that a lot of people might not think about doing. They might think that the FCC, I'll submit something, they're not going to listen to me.
Yeah,
It's like sending a letter to my congressman.
Yeah.
But no, they are required by law to read through these comments. If they are lengthy comments, they are required to, you know, address them and respond to them when they're working on these bigger notices of proposed rulemaking and things of that nature. So, you know, these rules are in place because the FCC wants to hear from you.
Okay.
You know, they wouldn't ask these questions if they already knew what they were going to do. You know, they want to figure out a problem, they want to make it better, and they want to hopefully do that for as many people and brands and industry professionals as they can.
So that's great to hear. Even if you don't have an idea of how it should be implemented, even the just concept of it should be implemented, there should be something like that, gives the FCC just more info and more support, and they know that this is something brands want. And then TCPA attorneys can help with more maybe the specifics and help a brand say, okay, I think it would be a good idea to have this be a free marketplace rather than it controlled by, you know, one organization.
Correct.
So they can kind of help you with that kind of thing. And you guys are TCPA attorneys. Like, you don't do any other kind of law, which is why I think you guys are so knowledgeable about TCPA, because you live and breathe TCPA like I live and breathe text messaging.
Yep, we can help, we can work with you, and importantly, we can connect you with maybe other brands or other companies that are thinking the same as you.
Yeah.
Because another thing that we recommend is that when people are making these comments, when people are going to the FCC, that they do it in groups as a coalition. You know, the larger number of people you have in that collective voice, you know, the more impact you're going to have on the FCC as it looks at what you're recommending.
And not every single brand then is doing their own filing, because it costs money, you know, to put together kind of a thought. And if all they're the same, you can just kind of combine them into one. Makes the FCC's life, I bet, easier too.
It does, yeah. Yeah, the less they have to read to, especially if it's monotonous and verbatim. You know, you're saving them time. They're going to appreciate that.
Okay.
It helps everybody.
That's great. Awesome. Okay, well, we are answering TCPA questions coming from the internet here. Luckily, I have a TCPA attorney here to help me. His name is John Nelson. The TCPA question we got an answer to today is, what is the proposed reassigned numbers database, and why does it matter to the TCPA? We also talked about why it matters for brands, consumers, everybody's getting those Chipotle text messages. Everybody's affected by this. We also talked about how brands and really anybody can kind of submit their comments to the FCC, which we highly recommend. The FCC is looking for these things. So again, it is November 2018 to put a little everything in context. And again, my name is Derek Johnson with Tatango.com. This is John Nelson, TCPA attorney, and we are answering TCPA questions.